Hello friends, good morning. This is a lecture video to explain to people who are curious. At the age of 50, 55, or 60, you're naturally wondering, how do I take care of all my retirement money? How do I assure my family's future? How do I prepare for emergencies? Do I have enough insurance? Do I have a pension? Where should I deploy my savings? Should they be invested for safety or for growth? So really, there's a lot of questions on how to put your money to best use so that they're not just all earning 1% a year in the bank, but some of them are earning 4% a year in government bonds, and some of them are earning 8% a year in blue chip stocks. And a few might be earning 12% a year in small company stocks, which tend to be more active, hyperactive. So it's all a matter of allocating your assets to the best uses and to make sure that you have money to cover your expenses 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, to ensure your family's future up to the next 30 years, go beyond, go 100 years. So I'm going to refer to this PowerPoint now where I explain how you can save money for a rainy day, meaning for emergencies, and invest money for long term. Don't be afraid to earn 8 or 12% per year by putting your money in the faster running securities. Of course, they're volatile, but since they tend to move higher over time, even if they are shaky up and down, zigzag, at least they're still moving upwards over time, even if they tend to move up and down a lot on a weekly basis. And then number three, plan ahead for your family's future up to many, many years. If possible, put away a fund of money that is for your family's welfare for the next 30 years. And if it doesn't run out, that money can keep on growing for the next 40 years, 50 years, and continue helping your descendants up to the next 100 years. Okay, next slide. Which is better? Money is safe, but zero growth, or money is growing even if life is uncertain? So if you have enough money, then you don't need any more growth. You can just keep the portfolio assets at the same size. And then if you don't have enough money for all your needs, then you'll have to make a portion of it to grow over time, some at 4%, some at 8%, some at 12%. Really, it's entirely up to you. Depends on whether you have enough or you still want it to grow higher, to grow bigger. Now, just as a particular question, how do you make money grow 15% a year? 15% sounds difficult, but it's entirely achievable in the Philippines. So, let's see. Um, what's letter B? 8 letters that makes money grow 15% per year. Banking? Nope. Beeswax? No. Beehives? No. It's business. And then, how do you? Oh, oops. How do you make money grow 15% a year in RE? That's real estate. And then the letter S. That's not smuggling. That's stocks. Okay. So going on ahead to how to save for my family's future, I need to save and invest money, short term, medium term, long term. Really, all terms need to be considered. And some of your money will be set to grow at 4%, some at 8, some at 12%, some maybe more. You need to have a budget. Budget allocates money for next week, money for next month, and money for next year, taking care of basic needs. For medium term and long term, you need to think about what are my expenses for the next 10 years, what will be my family's expenses for the next 20 years, just in case I'm not around. This money needs to still grow and accrue to the benefit of the beneficiaries. And then, do I have money for emergencies and also for my retirement years for you and your spouse? So plan and think far ahead. That's what the meaning is of Provident Fund. Providere, looking far forward into the future. Jokingly, I suggest to people that their wallet should have four compartments because there are four big things that you need to allocate your money to. You need to have money here and now, need to have money for the medium term, money for the unknown future, and money for the known future. Four different kinds of groups of expenses. And in the first place, money here and now is money for household expenses. So you need this money this week and this month. So most likely that money is kept in cash and time deposits. What about medium term? Well, that's money that you're saving up for your house, for your car, your tuition fees for the kids, for them to go to school. And for that, there are medium term savings, typically government bonds. Then there is money that you need for the unknown future, which could be possible accident, death, or disability. I pray that nothing bad ever happens to you or your loved ones, but we need to be prepared just in case. Bagay dyan yung long-term savings. And then there's the ultimate long-term investments, which would be for my retirement. For a 23-year-old young worker, he would be working until maybe age of 60 or 63. That will be about 40 years of savings for his retirement. And for those who are lucky to have a company pension, the company will give you money until your last year of life, even after you've stopped working for them. If you have no such company pension, then you have to build your own retirement money by saving 12 or 15% of your salary every month and putting it in a fund that grows over time. That's retirement. Now, the second part of long-term investment is legacy. Money that you want to leave to your kids and grandkids over the years so that if they ever need help with their master's degrees or their PhD, or if they want to study to be a pilot, or they want to run for public office and they may need a few millions of campaign funds, or if they want to start a business, then you as the loving grandfather, grandmother will be able to help them out in part or in full. So now cash and time deposits is normally going back to the four compartments. Money in the bank, that's bank deposits. Could be savings account or checking account. If you have money that you don't intend to touch for 6 months or 12 months, then you can park it in time deposits, where there you could earn 1.5%, maybe 2 on lucky years, maybe down to 1. Now, the second part, the second quadrant is the money that young families need to save up for house, car, and tuition. If you don't have those yet, then you'll need to save up maybe 5 years for a car, 10 years for a house, spend 15 years for a child from preschool to university, unless there's scholarships, but still living expenses, of course. And if you have 5 or 10 years to invest, then don't leave the money in time deposits. Put it in investments that will grow 5 or 7% per year. If they're government bonds, they're guaranteed to pay you 5 or 7% per year, depending on how long is the time frame, and to return your money upon the 5th or the 10th or the 15th year. If it's a government bond for 15 years, then you wait patiently for the 15 years to pass, but you're going to get 5% a year and then your money back on the 15th year. That's guaranteed by the Republic of the Philippines. Money grows better over time, so don't leave money in time deposits if you have more than 5 years to park it there. As of 2021, time deposits are earning average 1 to 1.5%. Treasury bills for 1 or 3 years would be earning you 3% or less. Philippine dollar bonds 3% approximately, and Philippine peso bonds 4, sometimes 5%. Corporate bonds 6, sometimes 7%. Asset swaps on bonds 6%. Just ask the branch manager of your local bank what it's all about, and then he or she may be able to explain it to you. They may have to call somebody in Treasury to explain to you the options available to you. Now, bear in mind that inflation in the Philippines is running at 2 or 3 or 4%, so you need to make your money grow more than 4% for sure. Otherwise, inflation will erode the purchasing power. Now, we go now to the third quadrant, which is accident, death, and disability. For that, you need to have long-term savings, like insurance. Go speak with an insurance agent, or whom he might call himself a registered financial planner. Go ahead and ask him how much insurance you need for life, for health, for house, for accident. Okay. Now, going to retirement money, that's long-term investments, because you need to save up from age 23 to 60, and then it should take care of you from retirement age up to your last year of life. And there should be enough left over that you can leave it to your offspring. In practice, this means I need to have money for my living expenses up to the age of 60 or 90. So there, that's the challenge, that you need to set aside enough money for that. If you have a company who is paying you a nice salary and promises a pension, then this is all taken care of. Upon your last day of work, they'll say, congratulations, thank you for your service, and we will continue to pay you 2/3 of your salary for the rest of your life. So I think you're set. If you don't have that sort of company pension, you have to build your own, and you have to go back to when you were 22 years old, when you're starting out in a job, and start saving money from then until now. If you haven't done that yet, then double time or triple time start saving money now, so that by the time you're 60, and you might not be welcome in an office anymore, or you might not want to go to office anymore or run a business. You might be tired. You might want to rest. Just take care of the grandchildren, run a farm. In that case, then as long as there's enough money for living expenses, then you have no more worries. But that means that you have planned ahead since you were sana 20 years old, if not 40, 50 years old, habol pa. Start saving money, putting them in investments that grow 8 or 12% a year, so that that money is grown sufficiently large so that by the time you're 60, 65, 70, you have money coming towards you. Okay? And the second part of long-term investments is take care of my family's welfare for the next generations. You want to be the benevolent granddad who is like the lender of last resort for the kids and or the grandkids or the nephews and nieces. So ideally, you must have started at a young age to set aside part of your business income or salary into retirement savings that grows over time. And then don't touch it until you're 65, 60 years old, and that's the only time you start spending it. That's the saving for a nest egg. That's what you call it. Conserve that and spend what you need until you reach your last day on earth, and then you bequeath the rest of it to your beneficiaries. Okay, so that's retirement money. How shall I explain it? Whatever income you receive from age 20 onwards, don't spend all of it. Save part of it and let those savings take care of you, your needs from age 60 to 90. I hope you live long and happy until 90 or 100, and apply for a job as a fitness instructor. Kaya yan. And then, since you have lots of time for saving up for in retirement, then you need not put it in anything growing 1% or 5%. You go for 15%. Go for 15% because you have time on your side. You have more than 30 years of planning ahead to be able to make this investment work bit by bit for you. Even if it's a very shaky line, as long as it's upwards, slanting over time. Because the economy grows over time. And you want your money to be riding the economy growing over time. Diba? So, let it be for your benefit. Now, what I tell young workers, say those who start at the age of 30, is that you should save 30,000 pesos every year, every year, and let it grow 15% a year for 30 years. And that 30,000 pesos after 30 years will be worth 1.99 million or about 2 million pesos. And tamang-tama, by the age of 60, you can harvest that 2 million pesos. Now, at the age of 31, invest another 30,000 pesos. That's equivalent to 3,000 pesos per month times 10 months. And then put it in good investments that grow 15%. And after 30 years, you would be 61 years old and harvesting 2 million pesos. That's the plan. Do the same for your age of 32, 33, 34, and then you will be harvesting the long-term savings or the long-term investment at the age of 62, 3, 4, 5, 6 onwards. That's the plan for your retirement savings. And then the concept is that you plant a tree today and then you can harvest the fruits, because by then you'll have a big plantation in your old age. Now, next part is legacy. Invest money for the sake of the next generation. Let's say that you imagine that one day you'll be a grandfather and there's a grandchild who is so young he doesn't have any money, of course, and doesn't know what to do with money. So for those who are too young to realize that it's important to save and they have no money whatsoever, then you save on their behalf, because you have the wisdom and the prudence and the means, the assets, the money, to be able to speak with the banker and say, I'd like to set aside this sum of money for the needs of my kids and grandkids for the future. I'll explain later the meaning of trust accounts, which is an account, money deposited with the trust bank for the benefit of my children and or grandchildren, or charitable foundations. Then, in that case, then I would recommend that you invest big time, 100,000 pesos per year, starting the age of 20, 30, whenever you can set aside money for legacy. Set aside, for example, 100,000 growing at 15% for 20 years, and in about 20 years, that will be worth 1.6 million. See, the 100,000 grows to be 1.6 million. That's a nice number. You can do a lot with 1.6 million. It just requires the bravery to invest the money, the 100,000, and the patience to wait 20 years. And the wisdom to find the right investment that grows 15% a year. Now, if you let the money grow 30 years instead of just 20, then that 100,000 times 1.15 to the 30th power becomes 6.6 million. So, on the 30th year, that would be worth 6.6 million. You can do a lot with that money. Or your beneficiaries could do a lot with that money. That's certainly beneficial. Okay, so this time the style is to plant a tree today, but let my descendants harvest the fruits. And you can call it the Family Scholarship Fund or Family Business Capital Fund, or my grandson will be running for president one day and I want to set aside a few million pesos to help him out win in the elections for president. Right? So this is a plan for you to budget money for me and my family for the next 10 years. Money for kids and grandkids, target again 15% growth for the next 20 years. And then money for great-grandchildren, target 15% growth for the next 30 years. This is providence, looking ahead, planning ahead, prudence. So therefore, save and invest money on a certain day, and then patiently wait for it to grow, and then be able to harvest it in waves in the future for the good of your family. Right? So that's the concept. Now, stocks are good. Stocks are good for long-term investment. You have preferred shares. which pay about 6% a year. Ask a broker what he would recommend. There are common shares, which mean that you are part owner of the company, which have grown 8 to 12% per year. I've measured our top 30 stocks in the Philippines to grow 8% a year since 1988. And if you start counting from 2003, they've grown 12% a year. And if you start counting since 2009, they've grown 12% a year, approximately. So now it's just a matter of deciding whether you want to buy your own stocks. It's cheaper that way, but you need to have skills to select, and then you need to have time to actually do the transaction, maybe on your computer, on your cell phone, and then to monitor the growth. If you think you don't have the skills and you don't want to engage in trial and error, and you don't have the time anyway to go into that because you're busy with other things, then you go for investment funds. In which case, you talk to an expert. He has the skills, he has the full-time focus, the time to work on those funds, and you give him the instructions. I want either aggressive funds or conservative funds. So if you want to invest by yourself, you may do so, and you will learn a lot, but you will get tired and you will spend a lot of time working on it. There's a lot of thrill involved and also a lot of stress, so there's pros and cons. If you want, you can just pay an expert, and then let them decide for you exactly what stocks to buy, when to buy. They will spend time looking at the investments, monitoring it. They love to do that anyway. And let them get the stress. For them, it's fun work, and it's very exciting. They do it well. So pick a good expert. If you want to be the expert, then invest your money yourself. But it could lead to stress in case you experience a -5 on the first month, and that sometimes happens. So it's all a question of whether you're going to drive your portfolio yourself. You can do that, but you'll get tired. Or you will just hire a driver, like call an expert and ask him to manage the money according to your instructions. And you can find experts in banks, insurance companies, in mutual fund companies, and also financial advisory companies. Again, this slide is about, should I invest in stocks? Will I choose my own stocks? Should I engage in trial and error? Will I be hands-on? I will maximize the fund, but I might also make some mistakes. If you go for investment funds, usually an expert will buy only the promising stocks, and they're not necessarily the top 30. There. So it's the same if somebody's investing in mutual funds, their experts buy only the promising stocks, not necessarily the top 30. Alternative is to invest in the top 30 via an exchange traded fund, such as the FMETF, First Metro Exchange Traded Fund. It automatically buys the top 30 stocks in the same ratio and proportion that they are to each other on the stock exchange. Whatever are the top 30 with relative sizes, the fund will buy those top 30 by computer for your account, so that you are able to benefit from the growth of the top 30 stocks. Usually they're the best for beginner investors, for long-term investment. Which is cheaper. It's cheaper to buy 100,000 worth of stocks directly, and you would pay 1% of total, 1,050 plus a little value-added tax. If you buy 100,000 of mutual funds, you would pay 2,000 pesos on day one, which is 2% of front load. Then you would pay again 2,000 pesos year after year until you liquidate the fund or convert it back to cash. It's like hiring a driver to drive your own portfolio. Another way to go about it is to get the benefit of a mutual fund without having to pay the fees of a mutual fund. And the way to do that is to buy 100,000 worth of an exchange traded fund. And it works like a stock because it charges you only 1,050 pesos for every 100,000 of investment. Okay, so 1,050 pesos plus VAT, approximately 1,200. It's a lot cheaper than having to pay 2,000 on day one and then 2,000 per year. So in summary, you have three basic choices for where to park your assets. If you need the money this year, you'll have to keep it in the bank where it grows maximum 1% per year, but at least it's accessible. If you don't intend to use the money for 5 years or 10 years, better to park it in safe and secure investments like government bonds, which grow 4 or 5% a year. Very reliable. You get your money back for sure. Then there is the long-term investment, which can be parked in risky assets. Risky because they tend to go up and down on a daily basis. You don't know how much your investment will be by the end of the week. There's some uncertainty. But if you feel that the economy will go up anyway, then your investment will follow the overall trend of that economy, except that it's going to be moving up and down like a wave. I would estimate risky investments in stocks could grow 8 to 12% per year in the future. There was a big dip, of course, in 2020, but I think that by 2021, they will invested listed companies would start to claw their way up this big pit, and then hopefully get out of it by in the next 2 years to be able to regain their former mobility in terms of travel, tourism, and shopping activity, dining out. If you want to know more, visit my Facebook group on Basics on Stocks and Investing. You can freely download hundreds of files that I've uploaded and shared to people who are debating with this question. Should I buy stocks on my own, or should I just hire an expert? Okay, and let's hope that the economy resumes its growth path of growing at 6 or 7% per year as soon as we get over this massive disruption. That's my contact info. I'm going to show you now some Excel files with diagrams. Let me change the screen. And so here's the available methods for savings and investment. Let's assume that there's money in the bank, 10 million pesos. Savings for a lifetime. And it's in the bank earning 1% on time deposit. Mahina. You could, with the advice of an financial planner or investment advisor, you could park it into 20% in the bank, 30% in bonds, and 50% in stocks. You could. Let's say 2 million pesos would be invested in time deposits. That's practically, 1%. 2 million times 1% gives you 0.2% expected growth rate for the bank savings. Expected growth rate means the estimated growth of 1% times the amount of 2 million. 2 times 1% gives you 0.2. Now, if you allocate 3 million pesos to the bonds, and bonds are growing 5%, then the 3 times 5% would give you 1.5 in growth for the segment of the bonds. Then 5 million pesos for the stocks, that's 50%, times 15% estimated growth rate, then that'll give you an expected growth rate of 7.5 for the stocks. Okay, so the 15% for stocks is the estimate. Multiply that by the percentage that you're going to allocate for stocks. The percentage times the estimate equals the expected growth rate of 7.5. 50% times 15% gives you 7.5. So you add up the 0.2 plus the 1.5 and the 7.5, you'll get 9.2% overall. Does this allow you to achieve your objective? Okay na ba yung 9.2? If yes, then good. Kung kulang pa, dagdagan mo yung portion sa stocks until it grows as close as to 15% as possible. Maybe kulang yung 50% allocated to stocks. Maybe it should be 70 or 80. So you work on it in your Excel spreadsheet. And note on bonds, you may expect for bonds low interest for 1 year or less and higher interest for many years of waiting. Technically, it's called the yield on the bond, which is the coupon rate divided by the price of the bond. It's not technically an interest rate, but yes, it's the market determined interest rate on government securities. I would say interest rate is for bank deposits, and then for the bonds, it's the yield. It's the coupon rate, the coupon promised to the bondholders every year divided by the price of the bond equals a yield, X%. Now, let's go to my next portfolio. Okay, so let's assume that you would allocate 20% to bank, 30% to bonds, and 50% to stocks. Where do I put the 50% in stocks? Okay, let's check below, scroll down. And where can people place their money? They can place it, of course, in stocks, or they could put it in shares of stock of unlisted business or unlisted real estate investment. What's the difference? Well, they're all risky assets, business or real estate or stocks. There's no business that isn't risky. Same with real estate. Except that if you're good at business, then it's less risky for you to go into business. I have a friend who's good in business and he makes money there. He puts his money in stocks and he loses money there because he doesn't know what he's doing. He always buys stocks with wrong timing. So I asked him to please stop buying stocks. It's bad for his health. Other people are expert in real estate, but the moment they go into securities, they lose money. Or the moment they go into business outside of real estate, they lose money because they neglect it. They love only their real estate. Okay, so stick to real estate and forget the rest. Choose what's suitable for you. Look for an investment where you can start an investment and you can wait patiently, happily for months or years, and you know that you're going to reap the rewards because you control many of the factors. Okay. So here's the picture of what we need to determine, right? So in any investment, we're trying to determine how much money do I have now in the bank? How much money do I have now? And how can I make this grow, say 15% a year for the next 15 years? And I can call it the Family Scholarship Fund or the Family Emergency Money. Or it could be family name charitable foundation. And part of its duties is to give scholarships to your descendants, to give them business capital or to support their bid to run for elective office. You might have a grandson one day who wants to put a spaceship into space, you know, a spaceship that's recoverable. Support his plan. So you have money now and you want to make it grow, and it should be able to pay for all the future expenses. If it's just right, then you have nothing more to worry about. Solved ka na. But maybe you have higher expenses that you want to engage in over time. In which case, you better be making money over time some more. Are you still earning from salary or business or real estate rental income? If yes, then fine. Kung kulang pa, increase the investment portion. So you practically have to build a spreadsheet detailing your income, your savings, diba? Meron pa siyang income, and then your future expenses. So you cover your expenses today, next year, 2 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, and possible capital for future business and travel money, travel expenses. Build a spreadsheet. Input and output. So make sure that the income and the savings is enough to cover future expenses, whether planned or unplanned. Okay, so let's review the investment options for the average person. Number one is business. A business is an activity that generates income. It might have cost you a lot to set it up 5, 10 years ago, but now it just gives you cash dividends every year if business is good. And a real estate investment could be land or apartment buildings that you own and you just collect the rent and pay for maintenance. Or maybe you build and sell low-cost housing and that earns you some business income. And then there's a pension that I hope that you have, or you're lucky to have, in which case an employer promises to pay you 2/3 of your salary for the rest of your life and to take care of your medical expenses. And you don't have to go to office anymore. So those are the opportunities for you to have enough cash for your family to cover living expenses into the far future. Now, scroll some more lower. What are the available securities for your cash to be converted to? Securities are investments like bonds or shares of stock, which are easy to convert to cash. They flow fast. They flow easily from cash to shares of stock and back to cash. Because they flow, they're called liquid securities. They're liquid. You can easily convert them to cash. You can find a buyer for your asset. And if you want to buy the security, you can easily find a seller. Now, the typical securities would be time deposit or similar securities by the bank, certificates of deposit. And then you have bonds, which pay about 5% a year during high interest regimes and 3% only when, like nowadays, we have very low government benchmark interest rates. There are preferred shares, whereby the shareholder gets cash dividends of 6% per year. You can ask any stockbroker to recommend preferred shares to you. Typically, the share price remains the same over time, but you do get a cash dividend every quarter or every 6 months or every end of the year. Now, a preferred share works this way. You invest 100 pesos, then you get 6 pesos per year, and then when you sell it, the price will still be 100 pesos. The price stays the same, and you just receive 6 pesos per year in your broker account. It just arrives. Now, common shares would be the shareholdings of the majority owner plus many of the managers and the general public who are invited to invest in the initial public offering or any follow-on offerings. Whatever is listed on the stock exchange can be bought or sold among interested buyers and sellers. Now, the share price of a common stock can grow faster than the overall economy because the economy grows 6% a year in normal times. And a typical company profits should be growing 12 or 18% a year. Should, if it's very competitive. And if you're talking about the top 30 most competitive companies, then you would expect their profits to be growing 15 to 20% per year. And you're hoping, of course, that your investment in their shares would also grow 15 to 20% per year. You either buy the shares directly, one by one, picking them, or you buy a bunch of shares called a mutual fund. A mutual fund is an investment fund put together by a stockbroker to make it easier for his clients to buy a bunch of stocks. There are two styles of mutual fund. One of them is passively managed. It's a bunch of stocks, and then a computer is instructed to please buy more of the same stocks every day, exactly the same ones. And then there's an actively managed fund where the human manager thinks what stocks to buy today, this week, this month, and he tries to do better than the Philippine Stock Exchange Index, of course, he needs to do better than the passively managed funds. If you're a conservative, go for the passively managed funds. They tend to do well year after year in the long term. If you're aggressive, go for the actively managed funds. They either make a lot of money or make serious mistakes and lose money. But at least you have a chance. So there are good stocks and there are bad stocks. Just attend the seminar and find out what's the difference between the two, or learn it by trial and error. If you don't want to go through trial and error, consult an expert. There are good common stocks, there are bad common stocks, and there are preferred shares which remain the same in price year after year. They just give you a cash dividend. Now, if a mutual fund is a bunch of stocks put together by a stockbroker, then banks can also get into the same game and put together a bunch of stocks. They just call it a different name. It's called a unit investment trust fund. A unit of an investment trust fund. What is a trust fund? It's an account in a bank where you deposit money for the benefit of somebody else. Could be you as a parent put money in the bank for your children's benefit. That's a trust account. Trust accounts normally is one trust account for one family. But if you put up a trust account that's open to all, in which case you announce to the world that I have this trust account. It's meant for people who want to invest in stocks. So we put in some initial money here and we invested in these stocks. If you like the list, then you put more money in our trust account, and then you also will be part owner of the list of stocks in that list of the trust account. So it is an investment fund put together by a bank. The bank decided that I can also hire experts to do this under my roof, so therefore they're my experts and my clients don't have to go outside the bank to buy mutual funds. So the bank said, sayang naman if my clients pull money out of the bank account to put it in a mutual fund. I might as well just keep the clients in-house and get their money from the savings deposit into the trust account, which is called now Unit Investment Trust Fund. It's a trust fund for the sake of investments, and it's subdivided into units, and you can buy 1 unit, 10 units, 50 units for assorted pesos. Just check the net asset value per unit. Right? So an investment fund is either managed by a stockbroker, in which case it's called a mutual fund, or it's managed by a bank, in which case it's called a unit investment trust fund, or it could be managed by an insurance company, in which case it's called an insurance company investment fund. There's plenty of players in this field. So if you are just interested to buy a few shares or a few units, then go to the bank and say, I want to buy 100 shares of your UITF. Or you can say, I want to buy 50,000 pesos worth of this UITF. And you ask them to advise you which one is suitable for me. Better yet, you tell them whether you want conservative or aggressive fund. Most of the time, they'll try to sell you a conservative fund or a balanced fund because they're not likely to suffer an embarrassing loss, which typically happens with aggressive equity funds. Parang they're allergic to losses. Everybody is, of course, but banks will suffer a reputational risk if they ever recommend equity. So they're so allergic to equities. And they're so in love with bonds and time deposits because those are safe things that they understand. They typically don't understand why anyone would go into volatile equity prices. But equities are the ones that ride the growth of the economy. If the economy goes up, then your company profits go up and then your share prices go up. And that's what an aggressive investor wants to ride. He wants the growth of the economy, the growth of industry, and the growth of the company profits, and he wants to ride that. Banks just want to collect interest on the loan, which is safe and secure. it's even secured by collateral on the loan. So that's what they understand. So and I'm telling you this because they would tend to offer you a bond fund or a fund that's half bonds and half stocks. That's that's as far as they would go. But if you want growth, you have to go for 100% equity UITF. And they will say, I don't recommend it. And you should tell them, I want it. I want growth. All right? You're the client, you say what you want. And they will say, sir, but that's volatile. I want volatility. I want growth. Okay? But sir, that's risky. I want risk. So, sabihin mo na lang. Okay? So, otherwise, they'll end up selling you the safe and secure investment which will grow 2% a year when inflation is 3%. Talo ka. Okay, so next item on the agenda. What if you have 30 million to invest? Then you have a choice. You could either park it in a trust account, which is here's the money and kayo nang bahala, or you can put it in an investment management account saying, here's the money, I make the decisions as to what to buy. That's an investment management account, also known as a managed investment account. Okay, so you park 30 million in the bank in an investment management account and you periodically give instructions what to do with it. And they just charge you a fee. Probably a higher fee than the trust account where you just park the 30 million there and you let them run it as they see fit. And if you don't like it, then you pull out. With the investment management account, if you don't like the results, you only have yourself to blame because you have been making the decisions. All right? So, ito na tayo sa insurance investment funds. The insurance company can promote investment funds because they internally invest insurance premiums to cover the claims of the life insurance policies. Somebody pays for life insurance and lives an average of 40 years until he or she dies, and then the family lays a claim to the life insurance promise. For those 40 years, if money has been growing 15% a year, then it becomes a whopping benefit to the insurance company and hopefully also for the client. Now, there are two types. There's the investment funds, pure and simple, whereby you approach an insurance company and you say, I want that investment fund, A or B or C. They might ask you, you want investment fund plus insurance? I suggest you say to them, I just want the investment fund, period. Now, they will try to sell you the investment fund plus insurance because they will explain it as investment plus free insurance, something like that. They use different words, but they want to make it sound like you're investing in the fund and then you get insurance. Now, what actually happens is that for the variable unit linked insurance, the first 3 years you make payments and the payments go towards your insurance. Nothing wrong with that, except that you're asking them on the 3rd year, kamusta ng investments ko? And they'll tell you, oops, wala pang investments, next year pa mag-uumpisa yung investment fund. And you're wondering, akala ko ba investment yan with insurance? That's the way they sell it. And it's their best-selling item. What's the truth? 3 years of insurance, and then finally, investments. Now, if you don't mind my saying so, I mean, why don't you buy insurance, you as the customer, buy insurance, and then buy investments, sabay na. Instead of insurance for 3 years and then investments on the 4th year. Lugi ka ng 3 years. Right? So, might as well buy
an investment, an insurance policy, and then put money in the investment fund and then go sabay forward.
You don't have to suffer delays. Okay, so in summary, should I buy my own stocks? Well, it's cheaper that way. It's like shopping in Divisoria. It's cheaper there, but you just have to go into those shopping stalls and bargain. And if you like that sort of thing, then you enjoy it, then you keep shopping and canvassing and bargaining. If you have the skills and you have the time, it'll end up cheaper for you. But if you don't have the skills or the time or the bargaining skills, then go to an expert and just pay him or her the management fee and let them worry about what stocks to buy and when to sell. If you want to learn about stocks, then you really need to get practical experience. But if it's too painful for you to see on your portfolio, oops, I'm -2 today or -5 in the month. Some people say, I'll sell everything already. And then the following week or the following month, all stock prices go up. And they say, sayang, I shouldn't have sold. So if you're not emotionally equipped to handle the stresses, probably just pay an expert to handle the stresses because they're equipped for that. And they have an idea where the stock market will go and what the individual stocks will do on a weekly, monthly, and yearly basis. Okay, so good luck, and then study this file, share it with you, and reflect on what your family needs. Let's go back to this diagram over here. Okay, so how much money do I have now in the bank versus how can I make this grow 15% a year for the next 15 years? And label it as family scholarship fund or family emergency money. And then what are my future expenses? Then what's the money I'm still earning as of now for the next maybe 5 or 10 more years? And then below that, you calculate what are my living expenses, what are the ongoing tuition fees, and what's the travel plans for next year, and vacation expenses, furniture expenses, etc. Build a spreadsheet and then calculate how aggressively do you need your money to grow over time. And what happens if I keel over tomorrow? Is there enough insurance? Or is the money in the bank account dedicated to the whole family? If it's just in my name and I keel over tomorrow, then there'll be a difficult time transferring the assets to the beneficiaries. I would rather that as of age of 60 that you transfer the assets to a trust account and then let the trust be the owner of all your assets, including your house, your lands, your businesses, and let yourself be a beneficiary of the trust account. Plus, in case you die, then the spouse and the kids. And order the trust account to be managed prudently so that it will last more than 30 years. And if you're lucky, it will last 100 years. And after 100 years, it might be worth 100 million. If you're lucky, more than that, if it's managed prudently. Okay, good luck. Let me know how that budget spreadsheet looks like. Let's see if it has to be adjusted higher or lower.